All right, welcome everybody, welcome. My name is Mehran, and we are here to discuss all of the updates related to the July 2020 bar exam as a result of COVID-19, coronavirus, right, the pandemic, and obviously the stay-at-home social distancing uh, that we're seeing all across the country right now. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. The way we'll do this is we'll go over the current state of what we know. There's been a number of updates, not only from um, the National Conference of Bar Examiners, but also from state bar exams. And so we'll obviously go over all of that information here today, and then obviously open it up to some question and answer. And so as we go over some housekeeping first, this has a Q&A feature. So please feel free to drop in any questions that you have. Note that that's different from the chat, right? So again, any questions, please drop them in the Q&A. My amazing colleague Claire is in the chat. She'll be sharing information there with you guys as well. Definitely some links as we talk about some things that are taking place here. And then in terms of other things, as we get started, for those of you who haven't already, please make sure you take a moment to download BarMax, our free app. It comes with a ton of free content, including an entire MPRE course if you haven't taken that yet. We know we want to chat a little about the August MPRE. That is a question that we have received, so that will happen during this session as well. And then in addition to the free MPRE course, the first parts of our UBE course, our California course, our MBE course are unlocked, so you can play around with that and check it out. So please take a moment to download that app if you haven't. And the other thing I wanted to mention is our new podcast, which is called The Legal Level. Currently, we have 3 episodes, all really LSAT related, because as you can imagine, the LSAT has been dealing with coronavirus as well. It has actually resulted in the cancellation of the March LSAT, the April LSAT. And so these are obviously things that we're watching very closely, but the Legal Level is not just an LSAT podcast. We will be talking about bar exam and law school related items as well. So definitely check it out, subscribe, tell your friends. It is hosted by 2 of our amazing LSAT instructors, and one of whom is actually a BarMax instructor as well, Brandon, and then Yelena. It is also available on Spotify and Stitcher, anywhere else you might listen to podcasts. All right, and then let me just make sure in terms of other housekeeping. Okay, so we will be hosting some additional webinars moving forward. Again, stay at home, we might as well take advantage of this time, and we love to lead by example. So we're gonna host some actual substantive content-related webinars starting next Tuesday. It's gonna be an MBE Basics webinar. We haven't nailed down the time just yet, so stay tuned for that. I'm assuming around noon Pacific time, but we will obviously be sending out emails about that as soon as it has been scheduled. So please be on the lookout for that. And with that said, let's dive right in. So as you know, there has been a lot of disruption in society, right? It's really like society is experiencing a lot of technical difficulties. The good news is that these technical difficulties are really related to face-to-face interactions, which thankfully it's 2020, and technology gives us an ability to kind of circumvent some of that stuff, as we're doing right now with this amazing live Q&A. But obviously, these exams are still held in person, or have been, and not surprisingly, if we can't be around people, they say 10 or more. When I took the California bar exam, I took it at the Pasadena Convention Center in a room of over 1,000 people, right? So obviously, how can that kind of scenario exist in quarantine, stay at home, COVID-19 pandemic? And not surprisingly, we are seeing some things happen. So first and foremost, the first thing that we saw, again, obviously we saw the March LSAT be canceled, the April LSAT was canceled. We'll talk about what LSAT is doing, because I do think it's going to be somewhat related to what we might see from our friends over at the State Bar Exam and the National Conference of Bar Examiners, because we are seeing some consistencies across standardized exams that we will emphasize. So the first update was in late March, where the NCBE announced that it was going to make an additional set of bar exam materials for fall administration. So obviously the NCBE creates the MBE, which is the multiple choice, the MEE, the multi-state essays, and the MPT, the multi-state performance test. And so they announced that in addition to the July materials, they were going to release another set of materials for a fall bar exam. And then they also stated that they were going to make a decision on the fate of the July bar exam by May 5th at the latest. But at that point, they were still going to be hosting the July bar exam. They were just giving an additional option in the fall. And then we got another update. And that second update came less than a week later, where the NCBE actually announced 2 fall bar exam dates. So one being September 9th and September 10th, the second being September 30th and October 1st. And they stated that each jurisdiction would determine whether to offer the bar exam in July, early September, or late September. And so, with that, obviously, we quickly saw some action. First and foremost, right away, when the National Conference of Bar Examiners announced that they were going to make the fall bar exam available, New York did not hesitate for a second. New York was the first state to announce that they were postponing their bar exam until the fall. Obviously, New York has been extremely hard hit by this, so that is not surprising in the least bit. But then obviously now we have seen a lot of other jurisdictions also make some decisions as well. And so what we're going to do today is obviously we're going to go over all of that together. And as we turn the page here, we get a sense of where we currently stand in terms of what has taken place with who has said what about the bar exam. So you see, there are a couple of jurisdictions that are sticking with the July exam. Arizona, for example, obviously Oregon, Tennessee, Wyoming, North Dakota, Indiana, as of today, right now. Obviously, this could change. We're already seeing, stay-at-home orders being extended beyond April 30th. I know, I don't know if it was California or just Los Angeles, but I saw Los Angeles definitely extended it to May 15th. I saw New York today extended to May 15th, right? So obviously, if these things continue, I think it's very likely that you're going to see a lot more states take advantage of these September bar exams and postpone their exams. Like in California, people are talking about, will we be able to see, gatherings of large people at all in 2020? And if that's the case, will we see a traditional bar exam administration? Again, I talked to you about the size of it when I took it. The number of takers in California in particular presents a unique issue in terms of trying to figure out how to administer this exam, at least in a traditional in-person setting with these social distancing rules in place. And so obviously we'll talk about California here in a second. But just to review here, the states that are currently still set for July: Arizona, Indiana, North Dakota, Oregon, Tennessee, Wyoming. The ones that have selected September 9th and 10th are Alaska, Guam, New Hampshire, New York, obviously being the biggest state there, and Vermont. For September 30th and October 1st, we have Massachusetts and Maine so far. We have a couple of states that have announced that they will be postponing it, but haven't announced anything else. Connecticut, Hawaii, New Jersey have definitely postponed into the fall, but they haven't made any determinations between the early exam date and the late exam date. And the same thing we see here with Utah, Rhode Island, and the District of Columbia. Now, some of them have not even made any determination at all regarding if there will be a July bar exam. So that's really what you see here with postponed, for example, Utah, Rhode Island, District of Columbia. They're obviously considering other options. And I think this is a great place to kind of transition and talk a little bit about what's going on in California. And so if we take a look, what's going on in California is we really are kind of in a wait and see scenario. So this is the California State Bar page. Obviously they have the updates. And as I scroll down here, we look at examinations. And so let's just highlight this so everyone can see where I'm looking. And it says, on April 15th, the State Bar Board of Trustees wrote to the California Supreme Court offering options and recommendations for both the June first-year law students exam. So again, remember, we have this additional exam in California for unaccredited law schools, the FYLSC, and that's traditionally administered in June. So that's obviously up in the air as well. And then the July bar exam in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Read the letter here. So let's pull that letter up. And so here you see the letter, and you see that they're actually presenting a couple of different options. And so here you go. So notice their preferred option. And the preferred option is actually to proceed and administer the June first-year law students exam as an online exam with remote proctoring. And so, as I mentioned with the LSAT, I think that's an important, or a nice place to kind of bring up what we're seeing with LSAC and this new online remotely proctored LSAT that has been introduced in response to the cancellation of the March and April LSATs. And so now in May, we are going to see an online remotely proctored LSAT for the first time. We are already seeing online remotely proctored GREs. They're using the same service, ProctorU. And so this technology obviously exists. And as you can see, California is clearly considering that kind of a solution for the June first year law students examination. Now, as you see here, one of the issues that's obviously going to present itself, that's presenting itself in the world of the LSAT as well. These remote proctoring online exams assume that you have the equipment, and obviously LSAC is working to solve that by working with students who don't have access to computers, webcams, or internet, right, to figure out ways to allow them to take it. But you have to realize that the same issues are going to present themselves in the world of the bar exam, whether the bar exam or the FYLC. And so now you see what their proposed preferred option is for the July bar exam. And so the preferred proposal for California is to postpone it until the 9th or 10th. I mean, the 9th and 10th, right? The first one of the first one of the two options in the fall. But please note what they say below that. Again, I think this is really important because I do think this is something that we should start to consider because I do think what we're seeing in other places and the likelihood of social distancing still being present, whether it's July, whether it's September. I mean, let's pray to God that that's not the case. But at this point, I think this is already going on longer than most people anticipated. And at this point, we still have a month of it remaining, at least in Los Angeles and New York. And so they're talking about, again, this idea of administering it remotely, right? Prepare to administer the September California bar examination online, in person, or both as needed to address social distancing needs in place at that time. The experience administering the June first-year law students examination online will assist in ensuring a smooth online administration if that becomes necessary. So you're seeing that even in the bar exam space, this idea of remote online proctored exams is already raising its head. Now, obviously, in order for any state to administer a bar exam online, that is going to require the cooperation of the National Conference of Bar Examiners, because the multi-state portion, the multiple choice portion, is currently a paper pencil Scantron exam. But as you see here, even the National Conference of Bar Examiners has noted, right, as recently as April 9th, that it is actively consulting with outside testing, technology, and exam security experts to evaluate alternative methods of testing, including options such as online, remote proctor testing, if the traditional group setting must be canceled or modified. And so that is something to consider. Now, we do have some other options here. we'll obviously share the link to this letter. One of the options that has been brought up about the idea of canceling the exam in its entirety and having some kind of a waiver for those students to practice. I don't see that happening, right? I still feel that they're going to require you to take the bar exam in all jurisdictions, but I do feel that they might come up with some creative ideas in terms of remote online proctored exams to allow that to take place if social distancing remains at the time of the bar exam. And so with that said, I do want to point you guys to a couple of resources that I do think are very important here, particularly the bar exam jurisdiction information page. Again, we will share these links with the replay. But you see here, it's a constantly updating page that tells you exactly where every state is in terms of decisions being made. And obviously, these are all included in the presentation already, so there's nothing new here. But obviously, as we move forward, if you want to know the latest, this is a great page to bookmark and come back to. Now, let's talk about some frequently asked questions that we might as well review here. Again, we don't know about the July bar exam. We have 3 options. You notice each jurisdiction decides. So that idea of the NCBE deciding by May 5th about the fate of the July bar exam seems like it's out the window, right? It's going to be up to the jurisdictions. Now, obviously, it is possible that we do see a scenario where every jurisdiction postpones the July bar exam, which in that case, obviously, it would not be administered. And so I do think the one thing that I did want to bring up here, though, somewhat related is the MPRE and the August MPRE, right? Now, obviously, the August MPRE is before September, obviously after July, though, but still some questions. At this point, the MPRE is scheduled to be administered in March. Now, obviously, the issue that they're experiencing is that it's currently administered at Pearson testing centers, and those are closed at least through April 30th. Now, we do not know how that situation will unfold. But obviously, if they are thinking about online remotely proctored exams for the bar exam, I would imagine that they're considering a remotely proctored online MPRE, right? Obviously, we're seeing it from LSAC. NCBE is considering it for the MBE. So I think it's natural to assume that that will also be considered for the MPRE if this situation continues. And notice it says, if you're planning to take it, we recommend scheduling, registering as planned. If something comes up, obviously, they will work with you to reschedule, and you will obviously get a coupon to apply to a future exam date, which is what we're seeing in the LSAT world with the March LSAT, April LSAT, and even with the May online exam, giving students the option to opt out of that, offering them a coupon to register for any future exam date. And so I would imagine remotely proctored exams could be the norm here. And then the question becomes, if that is a manageable, sustainable thing and the security is maintained and it goes off well, not a lot of technical issues, is that something that we can possibly see moving forward, right? We already know that the MBE, they've been considering moving it online. But again, online in a location, right? Well, I'm sorry, not online, onto a computer as a digital exam, but obviously on a computer in a location like the GRE was, like the LSAT on a tablet was, is different still from a remotely proctored at-home exam. All right, so let's see what else we have here. Okay, cool. And so obviously, one of the things that we do want to talk about here briefly is this is an amazing time to study, right? We're stuck at home. Everything's been canceled. There's no sports. If you can keep the Netflix app closed, right, you're in a remarkable position to really focus on the bar exam, the LSAT, whatever the case may be for yourself, right? And so, with BarMax, we offer instant and lifetime access, all on-demand remote, whether it's our courses, whether it's our private tutoring. We have office hours that are very similar to this. It's something that we will be unveiling in the BarMax app very shortly, but in the meantime, I can show you in LSAT Max this idea of our office hours, right? In our office hours replays. And we did a bunch of office hours for the February bar exam. We are going to continue to host office hours for our students. You can not only join them live, but they are available on replay, and that portal will soon be added to BarMax as well. And so obviously we have the comprehensive courses for the uniform bar exam, the UBE, in California. If you are in a state that is not UBE or not, and you're not in California, we do have MBE supplements, both a comprehensive course as well as just the bank of real questions. And so in terms of what that course offers, again, it's an on-demand comprehensive course. So audio lectures, outlines, flashcards, banks of real questions, all the real practice essays, all the real performance tests. I actually think those numbers are a little bit outdated. Like if you think our MEEs go back until 2002, and there's 2 a year, 6 per exam, at least 6 per exam. They give you a sense. So we only use real officially licensed questions, which again, I think that's something that I do want to pause and say for any student. Whether you use BarMax, whether you use one of our competitors, do not underestimate the importance of preparing with real MBE questions. And again, just to emphasize that for you, if you go out and look in the bar exam market, you're going to see that the majority of or the leading bar review companies have a tendency to rely on fake questions. They don't want to pay the license for the real questions. And not surprisingly, this is from 2018, right? So regardless of what you're using to prepare, right, make sure that you are relying on real questions. That's not only for the multiple choice, the MBE, it's also for the essays. So if you're a UBE student, you want to be using real multi-state essays. You want to be using real multi-state performance tests. And obviously, if you're in a specific jurisdiction, you want to be using the real essays, the real California essays, the real California performance tests, and obviously the same logic would apply to any other state there. And so something else that I do want to emphasize, a lot of students who are in MBE states or states where we only offer prep for the MBE wonder, how can I use BarMax to prepare, for example, the Florida bar exam? And we see students be successful all the time. Florida was released this week. We had a number of students who were successful. And the idea there is they buy our MBE course and then they supplement it with a used book for the state-specific portion, and then again rely on the real questions from the Florida bar exam. All right, so I see that we see a lot of questions about the courses, so I'm going to go over these now just to emphasize. No, so you don't need to buy the UBE course and the MBE materials. The UBE course is a comprehensive course. It includes not only the MBE materials, it includes the MEE materials and the MPT materials. So the comprehensive price for the UBE course is $18.99. The supplements are designed for students who are either in states that we don't offer comprehensive courses, or they're relying on our competitors that might be using fake questions and they want to supplement their prep with real questions, right? Yes, so again, all of our questions are real, officially licensed questions. That's not only for the MBE, it's for the essays and performance tests as well. We do not use any fake questions, and you shouldn't either in your prep. It's a fundamental tenet of standardized testing to teach to an exam, study to an exam, and obviously that requires the use of real questions. And there's a lot of questions that have been released, so you definitely want to take advantage of them. There's far more than you'll get through. I see this question about our Florida practice questions going to be added. So we have no intention of releasing a comprehensive Florida bar review course at this time, but we do have the questions. So if you are a BarMax student, please just reach out to us and we can get you access to those Florida questions. We are hopeful that Florida will eventually cave like Texas has, Illinois has, and become a UBE jurisdiction, because obviously, the benefits of the UBE flexibility can't be understated. And really, no attorney is required to memorize any law while they practice. So why would the state-specific law on a bar exam be any different? And again, you see UBE jurisdictions that have state-specific components. New York, for example, but it's a separate online exam, right? And that's another way to deal with that, which I think is great. All right, so the California bar exam, again, all you would need to purchase is BarMax California. That is a comprehensive course for that exam. And the other thing to emphasize, since we are talking about FYLC a bit, is that we do also offer a comprehensive FYLSC course. So if you go here, you'll see down here the baby bar course is the comprehensive course for the first year law students exam. And so again, the California course is comprehensive, just like the UBE course. And so you do not need to purchase the comprehensive course and then add the MBE materials. That's not how it works. Those are comprehensive. In terms of, can you use the UBE course for California? No, you cannot, right? The UBE is designed for the uniform bar exam. The California course is designed for the California bar exam. Now, obviously there is overlap, right? Because they both have the MBE materials. So if you're a BarMax student and you are taking another exam, you are eligible for our alumni discount, which gives you the second course for half price, again, because of the overlap in the materials, but they are different exams. For DC is a uniform bar exam jurisdiction, so you would want to use the UBE course. Again, so in terms of the New York specific materials, we don't actually provide any prep for the New York specific portion of the bar exam, because again, that's a separate exam now. It's administered online, and they actually give you the materials as well. It's kind of like a driving test, right? So that's actually done completely through the New York State Bar exam. All right, so I do think that's a great question that we should talk about a little bit in terms of how BarMax is going to amend our calendar for the possibility that the July bar exam is postponed in jurisdictions, right? And so again, one of the things about BarMax that I think is unique is, we're instant access. Unlike any of our competitors, instant and lifetime access. And so we've historically always seen students sign up well before their exam date and take advantage of that feature, whether it's because they're foreign trained attorneys who have no experience with American jurisprudence, and they're going to need a little bit longer time with the materials. Or they're preparing for a second bar exam and they're working professionals and they have a full-time job. Or they're working and they have a family, right? And obviously those additional responsibilities prevent you from putting in the same amount of time. And so what's very helpful is to spread that out over a longer period of time, right? And so in terms of the way we are going to recommend approaching it, is we're going to recommend approaching the same way. We would get started immediately. Now, obviously, if you're a 3L, you're still going through law school, right? Law school has turned to online, but, excuse me. Law school has turned to online. Finals are, coming up here, so you're still going to be focused on that. But once that passes, I would turn my attention to bar review. And again, we're going to do some sessions about how to think about bar review, the best way to approach your prep. But let's get through some of these additional questions here. Again, the question about where to get the New York specific materials. Let me just pull this up real quick so everyone understands what I'm talking about, because there are other jurisdictions that are very similar. So if I go to the New York bar exam, let's see here. Here we go. So we are talking about this. The New York Law course. And so you see here, the New York Law course is an online, on-demand course on important and unique principles of New York law, right? But see, this is something that they make available to you, right? And then you take this course and you complete it, and then you take an exam, right? And you notice the exam's in 50 question, 2-hour open book, right? And so again, that material is all provided by the State Bar of New York, completely separate from the UBE, so nothing to worry about. Now, in terms of the question about, is BarMax successful? Listen, we've been ranked the #1 bar review course for the last 3 years. Excuse me. And that was before coronavirus, which is probably going to kill this idea of in-class courses, which again, remember, in the bar exam review space, the leading company's in-class course is actually, you go to a classroom and they play a video for you on a projector, right? Which is like a Twilight Zone episode. Why are you paying in-class prices for something that you can do from your own home? And particularly in the test prep world, right, where there's literally no benefit of being in a classroom, you're only surrounded by stressed out students. And now with the possibility of getting coronavirus, even more important to stay at home and still be able to access your materials, which is the whole idea of BarMax. Now, if you want to see some of our success stories, I think if you come to our testimonials, you're going to get a quick idea that BarMax has shown success with students who, according to conventional wisdom, have no business passing the bar exam. And if it works for those students, right? So you see here, Marcia failed 5 times in a row, found BarMax on attempt 6, passed, right? You see that throughout our testimonials. And our whole point when we first came out is, we had some ideas about what was wrong with bar review, why we were seeing the pass rates that we were seeing nationwide, and we put those ideas into practice by building the bar exam course, the BarMax course. But obviously, those were all theories. What made BarMax successful was our students who believed in our vision, adopted us early, and were able to show remarkable success. And so I think that's something that I think is really important for you guys to review. But in addition to repeaters, which again, I think, with repeaters, those are according to conventional wisdom, right? Every time you fail the bar exam, your odds of passing go down significantly. And so I think, obviously showing success with repeaters does show you that there's something about BarMax that stands apart. But in addition to that, with foreign trained attorneys, particularly with foreign trained attorneys who don't have LLMs, who have literally no background in American jurisprudence, using nothing but BarMax and passing on their first attempt, and passing in some cases with flying colors, right? You notice here, Ray He scored 65 points over the passing score. So again, what I would recommend is if you have any questions, concerns about BarMax's effectiveness, please spend some time with our testimonials. I think at this point, our reviews and success really speak for itself. And so that's a good overview, I feel, of our courses. Obviously, if you have any other questions about it, please don't hesitate. But again, just to emphasize, that's actually wrong, Claire. Remember, it's 19% off for the first 24 hours, but then it's only 10% off after that for the next 6 months. So definitely take advantage of that 19% off if you know you are taking the July bar exam. And even if you're not, again, we're lifetime access, so you will not lose access until you pass. And so there's really no need not to if you are planning to take it at some point. Again, lifetime access includes access to all subsequent updates, free of charge, all additional content as well. And the other thing I did want to emphasize, because we did talk about it, is tutoring. So we also have our remote one-on-one private tutoring, which is very similar to this experience, except obviously it would be one-on-one. And so the tutoring is done through web conference with our bar exam experts. And so that is available. The discount does also apply to bar exam tutoring. So if you're a repeater and you already have a course and you have a free repeat, you don't want to spend money. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So if you are a repeater, please make sure you make adjustments, whether it's with BarMax or on your own. We see it time and time again. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with your approach and the methodology. If you take the right approach, you will be successful. Remember, it is minimum competency, and so the standard is nowhere near perfect. In terms of the replays, so the replay will be sent out via email, but it will also be on our YouTube channel. And then as we roll out the office hours portal that I introduced, that you can see in the LSAT Max app, you're gonna have the same access in BarMax the same way. Something else that I did want to also bring up is our referral program, particularly if you know anybody preparing for the LSAT. You can sign up for our LSAT Max referral program, and you get $100 for anybody that you refer. So if you want to take advantage of that, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I can try to find the referral link here and drop it in the chat, or how to sign up for an account. All right, so next thing to chat about, again, so these are some testimonials that, again, you can see by going to our website there. We will share that link in our replay so you can see it. And I think with that, let's turn our attention to the Q&As. All right, ooh, we got a ton of them. All right. So yes, we do still offer essay grading. That does come with the course, and so actually something to definitely bring up. So when you think about what BarMax comes with, so we talked about the on-demand audio lectures, the outlines, the flashcards, right? You can actually see it in the app here. Okay, so this is the MPRE course, but let me switch out here. Let's go to Arizona and jump into UBE. So this section is free for everybody in all of our courses, the first part of civil procedures, subject matter jurisdiction. And so you can actually come into this part of the product online or in the app. Again, the app is available on Android and iOS, and you can actually see our black letter law outline. As you can see here, you can highlight, you can take notes, right? Just like a traditional paper pencil notebook. Again, we do mail the hard copy materials to you as well, so you will have this in hard copy as you follow along. But then you'll see you have these audio lectures. And for those of you who aren't aware of some of our faculty, our civil procedure lecturer is Arthur Miller, who is civil procedure. Let me see if I can get that to play.
Hello, my name is Arthur Miller, and for the next few hours I am going to be talking to you about civil procedure. Now, all of you have...
And so that's the idea there of the outlines and audio lectures. Then we have the flashcards, which is obviously great for memorization, spaced repetition. You have the ability to sort them based on how you did. So you can say, hey, I knew it, I didn't know it. Then you can filter that based on, the cards you got right, the cards you got wrong. So it's constantly going over ones you got wrong will help reinforce those ideas. And then obviously you see the multiple choice questions that come with detailed explanations for both incorrect and correct answer choices. You have the message boards where you can ask questions and see previous threads as well. The difference between test mode and study mode. Study mode shows you the explanation after each question. Test mode will show you the explanation after you finish the set of questions. And then that's the case for obviously every subject that appears on the exam. And then in addition to that, you have the additional banks of the MBE questions here. So right there, I shouldn't say MPRE, point that out. But you see here, it includes online practice exams 1 through 4. It includes the new MBE study aid. And then in terms of additional support, so again, we talked about the office hours that is also available. BarMax actually also comes with support via chat. So, to see here from the left menu, you can actually start a conversation, ask content-related questions through the chat as well. And then in terms of the last piece of personalized revision is obviously the writing revisions. And in our courses, BarMax California and BarMax UBE each come with 10 writing revisions that you can submit to us, and we have our graders go through it line by line, give you hypothetical scores and analysis. They are former bar exam graders, and so their experience really grading these kind of essays and doing it for years will be invaluable to you, not only for obviously the MEEs, but also for the California essays as well. And then performance tests. One thing to be aware of with California recently switched from the 3-hour performance test, doing 2 of them, to the 190-minute variety. And that was a recent change in July 2017. So there's not a ton of 90-minute California performance tests available. And so what we've done for our students is we've given them access to the MPTs, which are 90-minute performance tests. And obviously those have been going on for decades. And so that gives you access to a lot more. And yeah, so there's 10 writing revisions included in the course. Students can, you can obviously purchase more a la carte if you want them. But remember that, the course, in addition to, the substantive lectures for the Black Letter Law, also comes with the essay workshop, also comes with performance test workshop, right, where we kind of guide you. And again, the last time we did a bunch of office hours sessions on a lot of them were related to writing. And again, as soon as our office hours portal goes live, all of those replays will be available. And then we will be doing the same exact thing for the July bar exam. And so obviously think about that. If we end up having 3 different bar exams, we're going to be hosting those kind of office hours for every single session, right? So for those of you who are fortunate enough, like those of you in Massachusetts and Maine, who have already been pushed to the last available option, you're going to be able to take advantage of all the July content. You're going to be able to take advantage of all the early September content. And then obviously we will be providing you guys with the same level of support. All right, so let's see. What else to chat about? Let's go through the rest of these questions here. We'll go back to the full course. Okay, so let's take a look. Let me pull these up. Great. Okay, so here we go. Well, the MPRE still be going ahead in August, and if it's currently unknown, when will the decision regarding this be made? So again, something that we talked about. That's kind of weird. Sorry. Oh, there we go. So we talked about that. Let me pull that up again. They haven't made a decision. They said that as of now, we are proceeding as though it will be going on. You saw here, the administration of the August 11th and 12th MPRE is obviously going to be dependent on these Pearson testing centers being available, assuming, of course, that we don't see them roll out the remotely proctored online version like we're seeing with the May LSAT and possibly the June first-year law students exam in California, and then possibly the July bar exam. So obviously stay on the lookout for more updates there. So we talked about a variety study plan. So again, for us, we still want to start going through the materials, even if we're being pushed to the end of September. The beauty of getting started early is you don't feel as overwhelmed. You're able to make small chunks of progress. Obviously right now, if you're stuck at home with nothing else to do, take advantage of this time, because when quarantine ends, let's imagine quarantine ends in June, life comes back, you might not have as much free time. So I think you should really try to take advantage of this time right now to make progress on your prep. Again, not so much memorization, right? If you start memorizing now, particularly if you're taking end of September, you're going to forget. So it's not about memorizing right now. Right now, it's about going through the materials refreshing black letter law. Obviously, if you've been exposed to it before, if you haven't, and it's a new subject, obviously learning it for the first time. But most importantly, seeing how these concepts actually manifest themselves on the bar exam. And what that means is looking at previous questions, right? And if we can look at previous questions, I think you get a sense of how these concepts are tested, because I think any subject in a vacuum feels abstract. But when you start to see how these concepts have been tested on previous questions, it starts to feel tangible, it starts to feel doable, and I think it will put you in a great position to be successful. This question here, any idea if New York grads will be favored for the next sitting of the New York bar exam? I have no sense of why that would be the case, right? I think they're obviously trying to figure out situations, this scenario for all students, right? Whether you are a recent graduate or not, I don't think that's really relevant. I think people who want to practice. So I don't anticipate that being the case. In terms of provisional licenses, so we've seen a couple states already announce this idea that recent graduates can work under the supervision of practicing attorneys as this scenario unfolds. I know Arizona announced that. I know New Jersey announced that. You can actually see that here on the jurisdiction page. You see Arizona emergency adoption, allowing law school students, recent graduates, the limited ability to practice in Arizona under the supervision of a practicing attorney, right? You see that there. And then also you'll see that with New Jersey. And so you're starting to see that with certain jurisdictions. I would imagine you're going to continue to see that as we move forward here. All right, moving on. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Well, so again, I think this all depends on what the current social distancing rules are. And I think obviously California is going to have a similar issue, right? Because if we head towards September and we still have social distancing rules in place, where this idea of having, a large convention center with thousands of students taking the bar exam at once is not feasible, how do we determine that? Now, remember, with two different bar exams, that's a possibility. You could see New York split it where you have, one group take it in early September, one group take it in late September. I would imagine these are going to be different exams, right? I think the National Conference of Bar Examiners is going to create 3 sets of materials, right? 3 sets of MBEs, 3 sets of MEEs, 3 sets of MPTs. So, people taking it later don't have the advantage of knowing what's on it. But I do think, online remote proctoring is probably going to be in the discussion here, right? We're seeing it again in a lot of other places. The technology does exist to maintain security with the remote proctoring, with web cameras and microphones, and obviously the AI being able to scan that for discrepancies, in addition to having the live proctors check in randomly. And if you want to get a sense of what's going on there, the organization that LSAC is using is called Proctor U. And if you look down here, equipment, there's a place where you could go to Proctor U and see, here we go. Yeah, so first of all, obviously the equipment requirements are going to be an issue. They're already an issue in the world of the LSAT. I would imagine it'll be an issue in the world of the bar exam. But this is, the system that the GRE is using. LSAT is obviously using now. LSAT's been using this for the writing sample. We've seen this idea be batted around of moving the MBE to a computer exam anyway. So I do think, particularly if social distancing stays in place, we won't be able to do those in person ones. All right, so let's continue on here. All right, so I'm a foreign attorney. I need to know what states I could appear in for. So that question is really a jurisdiction by jurisdiction question. We do see a lot of foreign trained attorneys sit for the New York bar exam and the California bar exam. As you look at our, if you look at our testimonials that I brought up from the foreign trained attorneys, you will see that they are both California and New York. So we do see that quite often, but in terms of the actual requirements, that is something for the state bar exam that you're considering and attending. Okay. All right, so another question. If I'm unable to do the fall exam due to international travel restrictions or it being too close to another exam, will I have to pay for a new set of hard copy materials? So again, you know, in terms of our hard copy materials, you really only need to pay for a new set if you prefer the hard copies, because any updates that we make will automatically appear digitally, right? In the digital outlines, both online and in app. Any other changes obviously are automatically sent through the program digitally. Obviously, that's not the case with a static hard copy textbook, but that's really a matter of preference. But yeah, if you did want to replace that, you would have to pay for that. I have not heard anything in terms of how long MPRE grades will be valid for. Let's take a look. Yeah, so it seems that MPRE scores are available. It doesn't say anything new about that being valid for longer. Again, I think that's a good question to maybe reach out and ask them. I understand the concern. Obviously, what if your MPRE score expires before you're able to sit for the bar exam and become barred? So yeah, definitely a concern to have if you might be seeing your score expire. I would assume that they're going to extend the window to whenever that bar exam was, but a question that I might bring up with them. Should we still move forward with our application for the May exam? So Mary, if you're planning to take the July bar exam, I would register. And so, you know, a lot of states have different rules, like, you know, New York postponed its registration. I think it opens in May. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on that stuff. We will send out notifications when registrations open. But I would highly recommend registering for the exam for a number of reasons. I think, obviously, if something happens and, you know, we're in this scenario and we can't even have any of these three options that they presented to us, obviously they're going to, you know, give you a coupon or apply your registration fee to whatever exam it is. So you really have nothing to lose, right? Other than the time value of money. But you think about what happened with the LSAT, right? For students who were registered for March and registered for April, they had the ability to now take this online LSAT. And so my recommendation right now would be to definitely register for the July bar exam, whatever jurisdiction you're in, because I think if this scenario unfolds where they're going to start offering the online remotely proctored bar exam, they're going to give it to those who had already registered, right, before they open it up to everybody. So my recommendation would be I would operate under the assumption that the bar exam is going to be held, whether that's July or later. Now, again, you know, I think you're going to see more jurisdictions make decisions over the next few weeks here. So if you're currently in a state that hasn't decided, I don't think that's going to be the case for much longer. Excuse me. Why do UBE and MPRE scores expire? That's a great question. Why do LSAT scores expire? Probably so they can make you pay and retake the exam. I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I think obviously in some scenarios you could see where, you know, they want to make sure that your score isn't stale. I could see that with an ethics exam, right? Like you passed the ethics exam, you know, 10 years ago, and in that time, you changed your name from Jimmy McGill to Saul Goodman, and all hell broke loose, right? We probably want to re-examine you. So I think from that perspective, from the ethics portion of the MPRE, it does kind of make sense. Bar exam, again, I think also comes back to you know, we want to make sure that you have the aptitude before we bar you. And if that aptitude test is stale, you know, it probably would have a jurisdiction consider retesting you. All right, so any idea of the application timeline? Yeah, so for the New York bar exam, I can find, I know we had, I brought up the New York exam here somewhere. Let's look it up again. But yeah, so as I mentioned, it looks like the registration, there we go. So the current application cycle for the New York bar exam is going to be May 5th at 12 a.m. until May 30th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. And so mark your calendars and do not forget to register. All right, so Jennifer, I'm a foreign attorney and I'm enrolled to take the July California bar exam. If California takes the second option and allows U.S. graduates to practice under the supervision of an attorney, I wonder, is there any... So again, Jennifer, again, I think if they allow, graduates to practice under the supervision of an attorney, it's going to be a temporary thing. I still think they're going to require them to take a bar exam. So, I think if you're a foreign trained attorney, thinking about July, I think the worst case scenario that you'll probably be presented with is having to wait till maybe February, this idea that July never occurs. Again, I don't anticipate that being the case. I do believe, even with social distancing in place, if it continues throughout the fall, with the remote proctoring online capabilities that we're seeing other standardized tests use, I would anticipate that, state bar exams will take advantage of this. You have to understand that they have an incentive to hold the exam, right? Don't forget about the registration fee, right? And so I do anticipate these exams being held. And obviously, in addition to the revenue that they generate, obviously the larger concern for them is maintaining the integrity of the practice, right? And the standards that we expect of practicing attorneys, and making sure that we've had the appropriate hurdle in place to make sure that exists. So moving on, I want to ask you about the February 2020 California bar exam or rating results. Is there any probability that this time the percentage of passers would be higher? And what about the date of results? So I don't know if the date of results has been delayed. I mean, if you notice here, New York says that they're still planning to release it on or about the same date, even with all the disruption. I haven't seen anything from California about that. California is generally after New York anyway. So I don't think they'll be delayed. If they are, not by much. I mean, we're definitely seeing all of the results start coming out. I mean, we saw Florida be released this week for the February exam. We're seeing a lot of results still come out. So I don't anticipate that to delay February 2020 results by much. But in terms of the probability of there being a higher percentage of passers, I don't understand why that would be the case. So no, I would not anticipate that. What is remote proctor testing? Great question. So the idea of remote proctor testing is the idea of you at home taking the exam and them proctoring you using a web camera and the audio of your computer. So for example, let's imagine this feed of me is Proctor you watching me take my exam. They have obviously a visual of me, they have the audio, and now I'm taking the exam on my computer, typing my bar exam essay or doing multiple choice questions. And you notice by having this visual feed and having my eyes, AI is going to be able to do a lot of the work. If anybody appears in the screen, it's obviously going to trigger something. If there's any strange noises, it's obviously going to trigger something, right? If my eyes are moving off, right, it's going to trigger something. And so yes, obviously this technology of remote proctoring does exist. It is what LSAC is using in May for the first ever remotely proctored online LSAT exam. And for those of you who all remember the 5-section LSAT that you took to get into law school, the online LSAT is a 3-section exam, only one set of each section administered at home, online, remotely proctored. So if you wanted to have something else to be salty about, introducing LSAT Flex. All right. So let's keep moving here. So here's a great question. Melissa, does BarMax have an idea when all your MBE questions will have full explanations for all the answers, correct and wrong ones? This is the only reason why I have been hesitant to purchase your MBE question set. So again, a lot of those reviews that you see about us not having explanations are really, really old. I anticipate, we've always had correct answer choice explanations. You know, one of the things that from a methodological standpoint, we have an issue with explanations for this reason. I feel explanations are a crutch. What happens with explanations is students take a question, they get it wrong, they read the explanation, very cursory and passing, they tell themselves, oh, I knew that, they move on. That was our issue with the incorrect answer choice explanations. I feel that the best use of an MBE question, because you're never going to see that question again, right? You're never going to see that question appear. So you really want to take something away from it that we can apply to future questions. And again, this idea being that, you know, if you can use these MBE questions or the essay questions to instill the black letter law, that's really the key. And so what I think is useful is, let's say you had a question on subject matter jurisdiction, you're reviewing that question, you pull up your outline, you're struggling momentarily with that, trying to understand for yourself, you know, what makes the correct answer choice correct, what's wrong with the other answer choices. That's a really invaluable process. That being said, we obviously heard the complaints from all of our students that really wanted the explanations, and so we have been uploading those. I don't believe there's any really left that don't. Obviously, you still have the message boards for every question, so if you encountered anything that didn't have an explanation, you could always post and take advantage of that feature. But I do anticipate that by the time we get closer to our calendar starting for the July bar exam, we will see all of the explanations be uploaded, and so that issue will be gone once and for all. But again, I really can't stress it enough. Even with those explanations present, and again, you know, we really appreciate the feedback. You know, a lot of our students who have used our competitors really appreciate how concise and easy to understand our explanations are. That being said, please don't ignore the best practices in terms of being successful, right? And again, it's not about that question, it's about taking something from that question that we can apply to future questions. All right, so we talked about the diploma privilege idea in California. Mary says, my state has waived the fees for late registration, but could there be any benefit to registering early? I would say absolutely, particularly in this world of social distancing. Remember, if we're not able to have large settings, we're going to have a lot of smaller settings. And I would imagine in that world, locations will fill up much faster. And so I would highly recommend getting registered as quickly as possible, selecting your location, and go for there. Yeah, Rima, I see that request as well. I hear a bird from the window that I have open. I apologize, I did open the window because, you know, it's like a prison cell in here. I needed to get some fresh air. Moving along. When is the California Supreme Court supposed to make the decision? That's a great question. I would imagine sometime soon here, because forget about the July bar exam, the June first-year law students exam is around the corner. So obviously we will keep a close eye out for any news there. And obviously just make sure you're subscribed to us, email, text, and obviously we can also push out notifications through the app. But we will let you know as soon as we hear anything about that. So we talked about this idea of prioritizing New York. So I haven't seen any news from anybody about price reductions or refunds. It seems like anybody who is wanting to change their exam date due to this uncertainty, I think they're offering you the ability to apply that to a future exam date. That's what the LSAT did. My gut tells me that they're not going to offer a refund. They're just going to let you reschedule it. But I haven't heard about that. Again, in terms of foreign attorneys being able to sit for the New York bar exam, I haven't seen anything about that. No, there's definitely something here about the foreign evaluation form, right? But again, I don't think that has anything to do with what's happening here, at least not yet. Damien, how do you select your tutors? So for our tutors, we generally look for people who have experience tutoring the bar exam, and whether that's with some of our competitors or doing it on their own. We obviously love finding the former graders, not only of specific bar exam jurisdictions, but also former bar exam graders of our competitors, right? Because I think, obviously people who have a lot of experience with the bar exam is what matters most. Like, if you look, we've always separated substantive law from bar exam best practices, right? Arthur Miller is a legend for civil procedure. He's there to provide substantive material to you in a very clear, concise, easy to digest format. He's not there to guide you in terms of best practices for bar review prep, right? Obviously, we have done that from the scope perspective, right? We only have him lecture on the things that are tested. We don't have him go off on tangents, because obviously you can imagine civil procedure from the perspective of a law school class is going to be very different from civil procedure from the perspective of passing the bar exam. But so that's really how we select our tutors. Obviously, having passed bar exams or multiple bar exams is obviously a requirement as well. So I've been holding off on registering for the July exam until I know it's going to be Proctor because of the steep cost. Now that it's likely to be responded, I was wondering if I still need to register and pay now in order to benefit from registration. So again, listen, I totally understand that the cost of sitting for the California bar exam, particularly if you want your laptop with you, right, it is not cheap. That being said, I would recommend registering. Again, just getting on the list in case anything unexpected happens, right? Again, just seeing what we saw with the LSAT and this announcement of the LSAT Flex. It's a slightly different, obviously. LSAC is doing that because they're trying to get students LSAT scores so they can apply to law school right now. So there's a really a time-sensitive urgency there. Now, you could also argue that allowing law students who just graduated the ability to practice and earn a living, particularly when most of them took out substantial amounts of debt, is also really important. But my advice would be to register for it. Again, you're going to have to register to take it and pay for it at some point. So why not do it now? Again, so updated calendars. Again, as I mentioned, instant and lifetime access. What we always suggest is the best way to come up with a custom calendar is reach out to us. Because forget about the exam date, right? We really want to think about what else is going on in your life. Are you working full time? Do you have family obligations? Are you just committed to bar exam prep, right? But one thing that we do want to emphasize, because in the world of our competitors, this seems to be the norm, this idea of 8, 9, 10 hours of prep per day. We find that to be completely outrageous, even if you don't have other obligations. And something that I want to emphasize here that I think will kind of highlight this for you. BarMax is about studying smart, not hard, right? One of the things that you'll see repeatedly throughout our repeater testimonials is, not only did the benefit of relying on real questions and what they practiced on being actually representative of what they saw on exam day, but more importantly, the idea of not being overwhelmed, right? Here's a great one from Shannon, right? Shannon, who took the California bar exam 4 times using all these other programs. And then after using BarMax for the first time, her friend passed, as did she, right? And there's a ton of these, but the one that I really wanted to find here is, yeah, this is a great one, Eric. And so, you know, you look at Eric here. Eric was working 50 hours a week with 2 toddlers, right? But he was somehow able to prepare again, and that was a normal cycle, right? You know, it's not like Eric started months in advance, you know, from our recommended schedule. And so again, so I think, you know, the best thing to think about in terms of, you know, how to use BarMax to prepare given your unique situation is to reach out to us. Let's chat about that, right? Obviously, for those of you who are already our students, if you have any questions about how to best use BarMax, please just go into the app and do this, because I can show you what will happen. Because again, we don't have the office hours portal live yet. Let's say, can I see the previous office hours replays? And so I'll send that in. All right, give me a second now so I can actually send the response. But I just want to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about when I talk about the office hours and what we did for February 2020. And again, just because of, in terms of best practices, how to best use BarMax, you know, the things that we feel set our methodology apart from our competitors. Give me 1 second here. I'll pull it up so you can see it. All right, so these were all the ones that we did for February. Those are actually the ones that applied to both. We also did 3 for California specifically, but this idea here is that this office hours replay about how to best use BarMax. If you are a student, please just reach out. We can share with you. It's me going over best practices, how to best use your time. So definitely take advantage of that. And you obviously have access to all of these additional content sessions as well. You notice MBE strategies, essays, performance tests, and then obviously specific subjects. And this is what I'm talking about when I say that we're going to continue to host these kind of office hours as we move forward here for July, September, well, both September exams. And so, yeah, let's keep going here. Okay, so Carrie, this is a substantive question. How come subjects on the bar course don't include multiple choice questions? Remember, multiple choice, the MBE portion of the bar exam is only those 7 subjects, right? And I can pull up BarMax here and show you those 7 subjects. Which again, Civ Pro, crimes, con law, contracts, evidence, real property, and torts. If it's not one of those 7 subjects, that's why you do not see multiple choice questions. All right, continuing along here. So here's an interesting question from Margaret. In contrast to most people, I've actually been working during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm working in a medical urgent care setting. Thank you, Margaret, for everything that you're doing. We hope you're staying safe. We really incredibly grateful for everything that you and your colleagues are doing there. But your question about, so I'm wondering whether I'll be able to incorporate your course now due to all the hours limited staff we have now and all the additional stress. Any recommendations? So, the way I think about it is, the beauty of the app is that you can get the audio lectures on the go, right? Whether that's during a commute, whether that's when you're working out, whether that's when you're doing other work, assuming you're able to have headphones on. And so I think, one of the things that you'll see in Eric's testimonial, what Eric was able to do was take advantage of his commute, right? He had a 1-hour commute each way. And obviously that commute, being able to take advantage of the audio lectures during that commute, what else was he really going to do during that time? Listening to audio lectures, great way to take advantage of otherwise unusable prep time, right? And I feel if you're able to do that with the lectures, then when you actually have some free time, we can spend that focused on the practice questions. Again, open book, right? At the beginning, we're not worried about memorization. Use the questions just to guide your review of black letter law. And so that would be my my recommendation in terms of that. Here's a great question from Damien. Why is remote tutoring better than in person? Great question. Well, so obviously in-person tutoring right now for the majority of us is not an option due to the social distancing. But let's assume we're not in a coronavirus pandemic. If you live in Los Angeles, getting somewhere, anywhere, at any time of day is a crapshoot, right? Hitting traffic, for example, going to meet your tutor. For us, that is time that is being wasted, and for no reason. What is the difference between me being next to you or me being here in this video communicating with you? And even more importantly, something to emphasize that I haven't done in this session, but that you do see in our other office hours sessions, is we have the ability to share our screen and then write. So in terms of capabilities, if we need to do anything visually, if we want to go through an essay, for example, I don't know if I have any of that stuff saved. Yeah, I do. Let's see here. These are roadmaps. No. Oh, great. Yeah, exactly. So here was an example of one of the office hours that I did where I was going through a person's essay. And you see my ability to mark this up, to identify IRAC principles, emphasize the formatting issues. This is a perfect example of our capabilities with technology today. So again, what is the benefit of getting in a car and having to move to a specific location when you can do all of that stuff remotely? And not to mention, right, doing it in person assumes that you have the best bar review tutors in your location. Where if you're outside of a major metropolitan city, right, your options are obviously going to be much lower. But with technology and remote, we're able to put amazing instructors in front of students wherever they might be located. And so that's one of the things that we feel about remote. Andrea, in terms of Florida, we do not have an update yet on Florida. As you look here at where we currently are, we do not see any updates yet from Florida. Obviously, stay tuned. If anything does come through, we will let you know. Is it true that California bar exam is more difficult than the New York bar exam? Well, so I think before, when California was a 3-day exam, definitely. Now that it's a 2-day exam, you still have the California distinctions, but really for the MBE subjects, thankfully, it's only CIF-prone evidence. The rest are tested federally. So I think that's they're much more similar now that California is a 2-day exam. Obviously, the pass rate in California is one of the lowest in the country. But as we always say, we feel that's a direct result of approach as opposed to aptitude. And if you are one of those students out there who has not been able to get over the hurdle, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We relish proving that it had nothing to do with you and everything to do with how you were approaching it. Ray, I really appreciate that feedback. You know, Ray said, I think these sessions make this program stand out. Other programs do not give sessions like this without paying a lot more. Yeah, that's, I think, one of the things that for us, right, providing this additional content at no additional charge, right? You look at what we're doing with the LSAT stuff. I mean, we have exams coming up very quickly for that. We've actually been hosting office hours every day during the quarantine period because, you know, we thought they were going to take the April exam. That's obviously been canceled, but now it's in May. We really want to have our students be in a position to take advantage of this downtime and put themselves in a position to be successful, achieve their goals. And obviously we plan on doing the exact same thing for our BarMax students, just, you know, with the exam being a little bit farther out. We haven't unveiled that yet, but we will be starting next week, as we mentioned, with our MBE Basics webinar, and we will continue to offer those sessions, which those will be available for everyone, but we will be also hosting additional sessions that will be limited to our paid students. Henrietta, the question about some older questions being retired, not yet. They are in the process of phasing out some older questions. But again, you know, as we always say, in the meantime, those questions are just as valuable, right? They're still testing the same principles. You know, the MBE subjects outside of con law, you know, really don't show a lot of changes. So again, definitely take advantage of that. In terms of Georgia, we have not heard anything from Georgia either. Again, we will share this link to the jurisdiction update page when we share the replay, because obviously this is an ever-evolving situation. So we have a question here. If you plan on taking one bar exam at California and then sitting for another bar exam, how does that work with BarMax? So you would be eligible for our alumni discount, which makes the second course half price. So definitely take advantage of that. Again, we talked about modified schedule. MPRE prep included. Well, good news. You don't have to buy anything from us to take advantage of our MPRE course. So here I'm going to go back, reselect my state, and then go into MPRE. And this MPRE course, which is again audio lectures. So you see here the intro, and then the first part, regulation. You see the black letter law outline, the audio lecture. This lecture is given by yours truly. The flashcards, same idea, the multiple choice questions, right? This is actually completely free of charge for everybody. The only thing that costs money in our MPRE course are online practice exams 1 and 2 that you see here. These are the most recently released banks of questions. We actually have to pay a license to the NCBE to use those. So those are available. Each are $24.99. But outside of that, our MPRE course is completely free of charge. And we actually did in office hours on the MPRE as well. And so if you're preparing for the MPRE, you can always send us a chat in the meantime as we wait for the office hours portal to be live and request that replay because we can share that with you. All right, continuing here. So some of these questions we've already answered. Again, don't know anything about the diploma privilege. I don't know anything about priority right now in terms of registering for the New York bar exam. You know, definitely. Here's a good question from Angela. It says, if my state switches to some sort of diploma privilege after I purchase a BarMax course, will I be eligible for a refund? So in a situation like that where, you know, again, we don't anticipate that being the case, but if a situation like that arises where you purchase a course from us and your jurisdiction somehow waives you in without the requirement of sitting for the bar exam, we would absolutely issue you a refund. All we would require is documentation for that. But yes, Happy to help. And we actually have seen that with some of our foreign trained students who, they want to get started with their prep, but they're not sure if they're going to be eligible to sit for it, where we do allow them to get a refund if they're denied eligibility. Because again, these are things that we can easily document, so they're easy for us to make exceptions to our normal refund policies. In terms of, how would I suggest incorporating private tutoring with self-study? So that's a great question. I think, as you think about BarMax private tutoring, I think there's a couple of ways to take advantage of it. First and foremost is obviously if you're having issues with substantive black letter law. If you need somebody to clarify concepts, concepts or certain legal principles for you, or you need some additional examples, I think that's a great use of private tutoring. In addition to that, I think working on your writing is another really valuable use of private tutoring. Now, I don't think I would have them grade any writings live because I think that's a waste of your private tutoring time. But I think if you're taking advantage of our writing revisions, you've submitted a number to the portal and you've got the feedback, bringing those to a session, going over those with a private tutor, I think are extremely beneficial. And then lastly, I think, we definitely see private tutoring help a great deal with performance tests because, performance tests, the lawyering tasks, they do tend to give students a lot of trouble, but they are, pretty basic, extremely repetitive. And so I do think that, if you're struggling with performance tests, that's another thing that private tutoring can really help you feel more comfortable with. But again, I think it's really about, using data. And so like one of the things that you'll notice in the BarMax course, let's go to California, is analytics. And so as you progress through the course, right, the system is going to track you and highlight for you your strengths and weaknesses, which you then can take and use to not only customize your prep time, but then maybe go get some additional support to hone in on those weaknesses. All right, so Mary's question is, if you're an MBE student, can the tutors help with essays? Well, absolutely, assuming it's a jurisdiction that we offer a comprehensive course for. And so as of now, that is UBE jurisdictions and California. We do have a carve out that we're able to make with Indiana, just because one of our tutors, Celeste, has extensive experience with the Indiana exam. But generally speaking, outside of that, our requirement is that it's a state that we offer a comprehensive course for. But yes, we can definitely help you if you are just an MBE student. And remember, you don't need to be a BarMax student at all to take advantage of private tutoring. Private tutoring is available to all students. But obviously, if you're looking for help with essays, it should be for a bar exam that we provide a course for, with the exception of Indiana, as I mentioned. All right, so we talked about registering now. In terms of a question about affirm financing, you'll see it here on our store page. You can obviously learn more about it here. It gives you some examples of what it looks like over the 6, 12, or 18 months. But no, you cannot use any discounts with affirm financing, unfortunately. So here's a question: when can we register for the July exam? It again depends on the jurisdiction. So check with your jurisdiction. As you saw here, we did pull up New York's, which will be opening on May 5th, right? And then closing on May 30th. So please check with your jurisdiction. Obviously, we're keeping an eye on this stuff as well. We will be sending out notifications to our students. So a couple things: if you do have a BarMax account, either free or paid, make sure your exam date is up to date. So select the July 2020 exam. Make sure you've selected the correct state that you're planning to sit for. Again, you can do that from the left menu. So here is where you would select your state, and then obviously selecting your exam date, because we do send out information based on that. You notice we already have it in the BarMax app, the 2 additional exam dates of September 9th and September 30th. So please make sure you do select those accordingly so that when we do get additional information, we are able to coordinate with you guys accordingly. So here's a question. Are all of our tutors from Harvard? No. And so not all of our tutors are graduates of Harvard Law School. All of our professors for the lectures are. We do have a couple of tutors who are also graduates of Harvard Law School, but not all of them. Again, that's not the requirement that we use. For us, again, the requirement for our tutors is extensive experience with the bar exam, passing multiple bar exams, and again, that for us is really what we look for in terms of our tutors. And again, in terms of knowing that they're high quality, again, I think I would direct you back to our testimonials and reviews. Again, BarMax is not a new program now. Celebrating our 10-year anniversary. In addition to our testimonials, you can always come to the App Store, right? And if you look here, 4.8 stars, heading towards 2,000 reviews, and a lot of people might not be able to put that in the proper perspective, but let's compare that to what some people might consider the leader in the bar review space, right? And again, as the world has evolved, I think what you're seeing with COVID-19 is that a lot of students who never considered the benefits of remote on-demand courses are now considering them for the first time. Obviously, we're sad to see that a tragedy like this is the reason that students look to BarMax. But I think our merits obviously stand, really speak for themselves and stand even in a non-pandemic environment. The benefits of remote on-demand learning cannot be understated, particularly for something like a standardized exam. Oh, cool. Celeste is here. Hi, Celeste. Celeste is one of our tutors, and the one that I said I had experience with Indiana. And Celeste is a graduate of Harvard Law School. In terms of Ahmad's question here, can you reset the MBE questions? Absolutely. And the way to do that is go into your profile from the left menu, and you'll see clear multiple choice history, right? You also do the same thing with your lecture progress and your flashcards as well. All right, so running through these. And so here's a great question. Are our students typically Apple users? So, initially when we first came out, absolutely. We started on iOS. But obviously for us, if the vision is to break down financial barriers, being tied to iOS, which is the most expensive mobile platform that exists, doesn't really make sense. And so, we are thrilled now that in addition to our app on iOS, you can also download our app on Google Play on any Android. And then in addition to Google Play, we also now have BarMax Online. Which this will redirect me, and you can sign in from any computer as well. And so it is available across platforms now, so you don't need to be an Apple user to take advantage of BarMax. Obviously, the one benefit of the app compared to the online version is the app doesn't require internet to access the material. So you can download everything in advance. You see here in the app with the download manager, allows you to download the lectures so you can access them on the go with or without an internet connection. So we do not offer state-specific materials for Georgia. Again, what we would recommend in that scenario, which again, you can reach out to us and we can discuss in more detail, is we would recommend our MBE course and then supplement that with some used materials for the Georgia-specific portion. There will be a replay for this, absolutely. We will send that out as soon as it is ready. It'll probably be late tonight or early tomorrow. And it will be available on YouTube and as well as our office hours portal once that has been pushed live. There is no cost to reach out to us to discuss a customized course calendar, so don't hesitate to do that. So again, we don't offer a separate subscription to the office hours. It's part of our course. And so anybody who's a BarMax student, MBE, UBE, California, you'll have on-demand access to all of the replays of office hours that are obviously related to your course. So if you're a UBE student, for example, you wouldn't get access to the California replays, right? But you would have access to everything else. So we don't offer MBE prep separately at this time. We only offer MBE supplements separately. If you're looking for writing help, it's going to be either the comprehensive course, or again, you could always just take advantage of private tutoring. So here's a question about purchase on March 25th, and you're still waiting for your hard copy materials. So obviously we have seen some disruption with everything that's going on. You should have received a tracking number via email though. So that would be the first place to look. If you don't see that tracking number, definitely reach out to support so they can provide that to you. Because yeah, a lot of students ask that question. You know, we do offer the materials in hard copy when you enroll. What we send are the hard copy outlines, so what you see on the screen here. And then in addition to the outlines, we also send you online practice exams 1 through 4, the idea being, you know, having those in hard copy. MBE exam currently is a Scantron exam. Now that might be changing, particularly with COVID-19. So obviously having the online version of BarMax and the app, just in case you want to practice taking an exam digitally, that is available as well. And just to give you a sense of how quickly we are able to iterate, you know, when LSAC announced the LSAT Flex last week, it was on Tuesday. By Thursday, we had updated LSAT Max to provide that functionality to all of our students. And we were the first LSAT prep company to do so. And so obviously, if anything like that appears for BarMax, you know, we already offer the ability to take the multiple choice questions online and in app, but if anything else were to present itself, you know, the beauty of having an in-house dev team is that we can quickly iterate and get features out to you guys. In terms of where can you get access to the past office hours, so as I mentioned, we are working on the office hours portal. You can get a sense of what that looks like in LSAT Max. So you see here on the left menu in LSAT Max, we have this thing called office hours. Here are all the replays. So that will be live for BarMax soon. In the meantime, just go to support and ask, can I get the replays of the office hours? And assuming you are a paid student, they will be shared with you. Okay, so here's an interesting question about you know, companies presenting themselves as being cheaper than BarMax. And so I think one thing to really keep in mind that whenever you see a company that presents themselves as being lower cost than us, you have to take into account the length of access. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, students reach out to us and say, oh, so-and-so is able to discount the price so much more than you're able to discount it. And the reason that we have that limitation in our world is we stand behind our product not only with a pass guarantee, right? So, you know, obviously if you were to enroll in BarMax and you weren't successful, we do offer our pass guarantee, which makes you eligible for a refund. But in addition to that, we also have the lifetime access until you pass. And so in our world, we are standing behind our program for as long as you need, right? And I think that's a very important distinction to keep in mind as you look at the quote unquote price of some of our competitors that try to pretend they're lower cost. They're not, if you take length of access into account. Now, obviously, if you're really confident that you're not going to need it for long, we have had situations where we're able to, discount the course substantially, but it's a limited access scenario. Whereas, obviously, forget about the idea of, not being successful. I think if you take the right approach with your materials, you will be successful. I think it's more about, juggling other obligations, not being sure about when you're going to take it, or currently with this uncertainty that we're facing with coronavirus, not even worrying for a second about what's going to happen to my BarMax materials. And again, I think the other thing to keep in mind as well is you'll be hard pressed to find any company that provides the level of personal support that we do. And again, at no additional charge. We saw one of our students bring up these office hour sessions, right, that we've been hosting and we will continue to host. It was added at no additional charge. Right now, working on our California roadmaps, working on similar roadmaps for the MBE essays. All of this additional content, no additional charge. We are on a mission to be the leading bar exam review company and the leading LSAT prep company. And so I really hope you guys will join us on it. I really appreciate everybody coming out today. Obviously, we will continue to keep you guys posted on any COVID-19 updates. Obviously, as exam dates are announced by jurisdictions, we will let you guys know. Again, the replay of this will be available. As soon as it's available, we will share it via email. It will also be on our YouTube channel. Again, remember, MBE Basics is going to be a webinar we're hosting on Tuesday. It will be available for everybody. So even if you are not a BarMax student, feel free to come out, take advantage of this self-isolated time and prepare for the most important exam of your life. Thanks again, everyone, for coming out today. Thank you so much, Clara, for putting it on. And I'm looking forward to everyone joining Celeste on Tuesday for MBE Basics. In the meantime, stay safe, stay indoors, and keep working on your bar exam prep.